Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. The New York Knicks suffering, I didn't think I'd have to say this tonight, a brutal loss to the Orlando Magic of all teams, 110-104. And Alex, we get into how it tragically happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad. It was bad all around. The Knicks seemed very lackadaisical in this game. The 3-point shots that have been so huge for them early in the season just were not falling. We'll talk about some of the low effort stuff. We'll also talk about Mitchell Robinson, who I think had a really good game and had an injury scare. Of course, it wouldn't be a game if Mitch didn't have an injury scare that make us all hold our breath. But, he had a really good game. Rose played pretty well. We'll also talk about what the Knicks margin for error is like against teams of the Magic's caliber after we just saw them, come out there and not really try in a home game and lose to a team that is playing for ping pong balls already at this point in the season. So we'll get into all this and more next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, and we wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And as you know, if you are currently watching, that includes YouTube. I am Gavin Shaw, a play-by-play broadcaster for a number of outlets. He is much more relevantly Alex Wolf, editor-in-chief of the Strickland, the greatest Knicks website out there, and a Knicks beat writer for Clutch Points. And Alex, you probably had to write something super sad tonight because the Knicks tragically, their bid for an undefeated season ended as they fell in game number 3 to the Orlando Magic, 110-104 at home at MSG. I don't know about you. I expected a more competitive game than the one in Orlando just because that felt sort of inevitable, and it felt like the Magic would come out and be really fired up. I am stunned that they lost to this team. You can make an argument that every player in the Knicks starting lineup is better than every player in the Magic starting lineup. Every player off the Knicks bench is better than every player off the Magic's bench. And yet none of that mattered tonight because, as we were just talking about pre-show, basically everyone outside of Mitchell Robinson and Derrick Rose played a far below average game by their standards. It just felt like no one could really get going. And Orlando, give them a lot of credit. Cole Anthony was absolutely insane. 29 points, 16 boards, 8 assists. And beyond him, they just had a lot of balance, a lot of toughness. And it just sort of felt like the perfect storm of a win for the Magic.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I have no idea what I'm going to write about this game. I haven't even started thinking about it.
Maybe just don't.
Yeah, just I got to write something. I don't know. Maybe I'll just transcribe the podcast and just turn that into an article. It's about the best I could do at this point. Yeah, I mean, it was bad. This game, this is one of the first ones. Well, I would say the first one this season, preseason and regular season now combined, where we've seen the sort of bad tendencies of Julius Randle as the leader of a team. I thought that his body language dictated a lot of how the Knicks kind of ebbed and flowed in this game. He had his head down a lot. He was shaking his head a lot. It just really, I mean, I understand he was having an off night. So was everybody. He shot 8 of 24. I mean, RJ shot 5 of 17. Fournier shot 3 of 11. It was just like Burke shot 3 of 10, quickly 0-4. Just a really ugly night overall. 13 of 48 from 3. So that's only 27% as a whole team. It wasn't great, but the Knicks really were in this. I mean, the final score, they only lost by 6. Realistically, they were going to lose by 10 up until the last few, seconds. And then they had a couple garbage buckets, but there was a window with about 3-4 minutes left in this game where they could have just done what they did, say, against the Wizards in the preseason and just said, you know what, we're better than these guys. We're going to snatch this game from them. And, it sort of falls on some of the players. Like I said, I wasn't in love with Julius's like body language and his sort of like being demonstrative in a bad way. But you kind of get both with him. You get both sides. You get the, when he's on and when the team's on, he's demonstrable in a good way. And when he's off and the team's off, he can sometimes be demonstrable in a bad way. So you can just kind of take that for how it is. But like Tibbs, I think, didn't do the best job managing who was playing tonight. Kemba, for all of his faults, I mean, I didn't think he played a particularly great game, but was shooting somewhat efficiently. If you could have gotten him in there and maybe had him provide a spark. If you straight up say to him, Kemba, nobody can make a shot, go out there and make shots. Maybe there's a chance he could, though Rose probably had the best game of anybody. 23 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals. So you would have had to, make some sort of sacrifice and do a 2-guard lineup. But that would have been okay because he rode Alec Burks for a really long time. And Burks really, he's playing a pretty good brand of team ball, but he wasn't really affecting the game that much that, with his shot not falling, that you could really justify leaving him out there for the amount of time that Tibbs did, I don't think. And then, it's just, it's tough to even find the silver linings here. But you brought up something interesting before we started recording. So I figured we could just delve into this real quick before we sort of, the one, all right, there's 2 positives. One was Rose, which we'll talk about more later. The other was Mitch. I thought Mitch was great in this game. But why don't you give your take real quick? You want to talk about the margin of error that the Knicks have against these sort of teams. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I'm curious what your take is on that before I'll come back and respond to it or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering because last podcast when I went solo, I was kind of getting into how good are the Knicks potentially. I was saying, probably the 5th best team in the East behind Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami, and Atlanta. But I was saying you could see a world where they're the 3rd best team in the East. I know that was a take you had back in the preseason. We've heard other people come on this podcast and say that. I think Macri said something similar. And I think it's telling how a team does against the worst teams in the league. Because if you have again 3-seed level of talent in what's weirdly a loaded Eastern Conference, you should just kind of never lose to the Magic. And never is that's a big statement. And you could argue this was pretty much the worst case scenario for the Knicks, pretty much the best case scenario for Orlando. They're 2 NBA teams. That's theoretically possible. But literally a game ago, it looked like this was a college team against an NBA team. So you almost want to believe if the Knicks are as good as you think they are, that they can just on their worst night, they should be able to win this game. And if I'm looking for something this Knicks team lacks, and I keep saying they have all the depth in the world, they have all the skill, they have guys that can pass, dribble, and shoot. They're really well built, they're really well balanced. But if I'm looking for that one thing missing, it feels like it's that overwhelming physicality and athleticism. And at points that flashed in this game, Mitchell Robinson was a monster with some of he had that Skywalker block where he was running his legs in midair. He had a number of just insane flushes. Obi had the lefty lob dunk. Julius Randle had plays where he just buried Franz Wagner all the way back to Germany, just juking him under the basket. RJ had the nice dunk. So there were moments where the Knicks were yeah, they're the more physical, stronger team, but they should overwhelm a team like Orlando. And this circles back to when Alex, when we did our preseason or our pre-first game, what are our biggest concerns pod? You said, can the Knicks consistently get to the rim? And to some extent, people always say, in the NCAA tournament, well, you can bring your defense any day. You should be able to bring your foul drawing ability every day. You should be able to get all the way to the bucket and at the very least create a putback dunk ability every single day. And the Knicks, they're not horrible at that, but there's a little bit of a lack of that. Even guys like Rose and RJ, who are supposed to be those guys for you, they were getting to floater range a whole lot. They were not getting all the way to the rim a whole lot outside of transition. So to me, I think prescient point by you this preseason, and one that I think is worth watching as the Knicks, not even against the Magic, because usually they'll shoot the lights out against the Magic, but against the best teams in the league, how does that carry over?
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things to keep an eye on. I hate to be prescient about it. But
it sucks to be right sometimes.
It sucks to be right, it's terrible being the best, I guess. But
it's a burden.
Yeah, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because it definitely seemed to really show in this game, and the Magic aren't particularly. I know that Mo Bamba has been improved and whatever, but he's no Mitchell Robinson, so to speak. On the inside, he should not be deterring you that much, because I think that he still deals with some of those fouling issues that Mitch used to deal with in the past. He wasn't so bad tonight foul wise. 4 fouls in 34 minutes for Bamba. So, I guess maybe he's starting to work through those issues the same way that Mitch has. But, I think that the Knicks are not particularly adept at getting there. And that was definitely one of the things that showed in this game, because tonight was basically all right, well, what's the backup plan if you can't hit 35% of your threes any given night? Because they hit 27% and they lost by 6. So you need to have enough of a plan otherwise. But it wasn't even just that they were missing threes. I think that they also just, and Clyde commented on this, they had such a high number of assists the other night on Friday night, it was like 30, 34 assists or something like that.
Yeah.
Like just a stupid high number. And in this game, they end up with a team total of 20 and on 37 made field goals. I mean, that's not a good number. Like you want to have a better amount of assists on your made field goals than that. Particularly as a team that we know has the ability to run sets and, you know, make things happen via passing to one another and being unselfish. They sort of spend a lot of time just like isoing and trying to find their own offense. And, you know, Julius was doing it. RJ, not so much, I guess, but like Fournier was doing it a bit. You know, just Rose at times, you know, was just kind of looking for his shot. Like Burks, obviously, like that's kind of part of his game. You know, it's just, it's not great to watch, you know, and hopefully it's still just sort of those growing pains of them learning together. But I also think that the Knicks just kind of took this game for granted against the Magic. So to get to the overarching question of what's their margin for error, I don't know. I think that I I I guess it's sort of encouraging that it took Terrence Ross scoring like 24 points, I think, all in the fourth quarter. Was that how much he had? 22 points all in the fourth quarter for you to get outscored 36-24, you know, with Terrence Ross doing his only Terrence Ross against the Knicks level of shot making down the stretch there. That, you know, I guess it's sort of encouraging to a degree that that's sort of what it takes to beat the Knicks on a night where they really don't seem to care and really seem to think that they have it in the bag against a particular team. So I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe we basically just saw the margin for error tonight, that they really have to be extremely lackadaisical and only hit like 20% of their threes for it to potentially work out, where they end up losing. But hopefully that is the answer, and they don't lose another game like this season, because I would have preferred a 2 OT loss to Boston in game one versus this loss, because these are just so frustrating. Because if the final standings come down to a game or two late in the season, we're going to look back on a game like this and be like, well, maybe if the Knicks could have won one or two of these games that they sleepwalked through early in the season, then, you know, they would have gotten a better seed in the playoffs or whatever. But anyway, we have to take our first break real quick. And NBA fanatics, have you heard about Prize Picks? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this, and I know you will too. Prize Picks has the best NBA daily fantasy sports prop game on the market. Prize Picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. Prize Picks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. All of your users, or all of the Locked On Knicks listeners, I should say, that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code NBA. You can pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Use the award-winning app on the App Store and Google Play, and Prize Picks will allow you to make mixed sport entries even. So you could take the over on LeBron's combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. It's pretty cool stuff. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use promo code NBA, or go to your App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy.
And this episode is also brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live. Another lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone. You've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. And we wanted to remind you guys again that we thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every single day. With that, we are back on Locked On Knicks. Alex, we were saying we were going to switch it up. We're going to go a little bit positive, but I want to keep it maybe negative for 1 second. Maybe just a little introspective and say, like, is this something? Is this nothing? But going through Kemba Walker's 5 games, including the preseason, I know it's folly to look at the preseason, but has been a little disappointing, dare I say. Has yet to score over 12 points. Granted, just 1 game over 22 minutes so far. So that is a really, really important variable. Inconsistent shooting, 3 games where he went 2 for 7, 4 for 11, 3 for 8. Very first game he played, went 5 for 10, 2 for 5 from 3. Tonight, 4 for 8 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3. Had 4 assists, 6 assists in the first 3 preseason games. In the 2 regular season games so far, though, only 3 assists in 36 minutes against the Celtics. And tonight, there's 1 assist in 22 minutes against Orlando. When I watch him right now, he looks like an slightly over the hill version of himself, like kind of a pure spot up shooter, someone who can work as a secondary attacker, but is not really consistently getting into the lane, is not breaking down the defense. And to me, that's more so him finding his pace, finding his stride on a team that, as we noted, someone is going to have to get the short end of the stick in terms of shooting and usage inevitably. You have those 4 options. We've seen RJ lack for touches a little bit. Julius has gotten his. Fournier's mostly gotten his. Derrick Rose off the bench has gotten his. There has to be some level of balance there. Someone inevitably has to sacrifice. Maybe that guy is just Kemba Walker. But I'm asking you, Alex, way too early in the season. Is there any reason for concern with Kemba Walker? And let me just say, I was looking at his non-updated game log. That was the last game I referenced, was the first Magic game. Tonight he's 4 for 8 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, 10 points in 19 minutes. Point still stands, though, 6 games yet to score over 12 points.
Yeah, he's playing kind of weird, right? Like,
yeah,
he's not playing how you would expect him to. And maybe, I think maybe he's getting used to playing in this system where Julius is the guy that he is. Because I think that even in Boston with Tatum and Brown, they're perfectly capable of creating their own offense, but they're more used to having the ball put to them in a good spot, whereas Julius, I think, is more used to creating his own spots. And that's how the Knicks were so successful last year, was Julius being this engine. He's been, even today, I was really surprised looking at the box score. He had 30 points in this game. And I would not have guessed that based off of how he played, but it is due in large part to the 12 of 14 free throw shooting. But Julius is still that dude, arguably better so far this year than he was last year. So I think that Kemba's just getting used to that, and it was still I guess we're back on a normal schedule, but training camp is so short, and preseason he missed one of the games. It's just like, do we really want to? Or he missed one, right? Did he miss one? Either.
He missed 2.
I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, he missed 2, even better. Yeah. So so he missed a couple preseason games, and it's like the learning curve is still going to take a minute. I think he's just getting used to playing off ball, I guess would be my diagnosis. Not that I'm like some expert, but it just seems like by and large he's being so deferential, and it might just be partly him trying to get others involved too. But we don't see that same sort of mentality out of Fournier, for example. Like, Fournier has been the guy that we expected him to be, which is, someone that comes out there and is looking for his shot, but, isn't allergic to passing the ball. He's made some good looks and some good kickouts and all that stuff, but he's by and large doing exactly what we expected from him. Kemba, it seems like, and the assist totals certainly don't reflect it, because you noted that those were pretty low so far. That's looking real bad. Talking about things that don't make me look like a genius, saying that Kemba was going to set a career high in assists this year, in our bold predictions episode. But I think that he's still just getting used to things. I'm not ready to ring the alarm just yet and start panicking, because if you think back, if we had rang the alarm on RJ last year when he was 0 for 21, we would have looked pretty stupid. When he was 0 for 21 from 3 over the course of those like 6 games, 7 games, whatever, and had that terrible stretch where he shot like 10% over the course of like almost a whole month. If we would have rang the alarm then, we would have felt pretty dumb doing so. So I'm not ready to do that yet with Kemba, but it is something to keep an eye on, just like the lack of finishing on the inside is. That this game sort of, you can overlook those things when you're winning, like these things that are worth being concerned about, but then you lose a game like this to a really, really bad team that you have no business losing to, and then all of a sudden these weaknesses start to look a little more glaring, even if just for a night, and it makes you question, like, is there a problem here? And Kemba is definitely one of those things where I'm going to be monitoring that and being like, is there really a problem here or not? Because if there is, what's nice is that you have Derrick Rose on the bench that you can clearly insert into the starting lineup, and maybe actually bringing Kemba off the bench would not be too bad because he might be able to play more like how he wants to play and just kind of demolish opposing bench units. But we'll see how that shakes down over the next few weeks. I would not be opposed if Tibbs wanted to go with that sort of change, though, because I do think that right now something just seems a little off about the starting lineup, even when they're clicking on all cylinders. It just seems like due to how Kemba's playing and mostly Kemba. I mean, I don't want to like single him out, but he's the main thing to me in that starting lineup that just seems to not quite be working at this moment. And so I want to see how that develops over the next few weeks, and hopefully it starts making a turn for the better.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I would agree with you that it's too soon to judge. I just think it's worth noting, given some of look, the struggles in Boston usually weren't his ability to score on volume when he was healthy. Like a lot more of them were defensive. But I think given his age, given the injury history, it's something to note, and it's something to watch. Let's very quickly before going to break, let's hit on a positive in this game, and I think we both agreed that Mitchell Robinson had a really good night. Again, had a moment that gave everyone a heart attack. Last time he went down holding his hamstring. This time Jalen Suggs took him out from the knee and below, and he you could hear Mitch basically yell in pain and stay down for a few minutes. Trainers came out, and I was just like, this dude is snake bitten. And I argued so hard all offseason when people were like, he's injury prone. And it's like, dude, it's two random things. But then his first two games are kind of uh-oh. And it feels like, I don't know about you, every game I'm watching, I'm going to be clenching every time he's on the court. It feels like he's a second away from a bad hit just because he's so gangly and he gets so high in the air. But all that aside, some absolutely vicious dunks in this one, some epic blocks. This is obviously, again, you'd love to see some expansion in his game to some extent, but outside of that, this is the Mitchell Robinson I wanted to see. The same guy he's been the first 2 years of his career with just a little bit more power. I still think some of the mobility has yet to fully come back defensively, but there's a lot there to get excited about. And he feels, again, almost like a luxury piece given everything else that the Knicks have.
Yeah, I'm very excited about him too. And I am very much looking forward to talking about him. But I know we got to hit our second ad break and tell everybody real quick about Built Bars. Built Bars are the best tasting protein bar on the planet, and they have so many delicious flavors. There really is something for everyone. And when you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorites. Just look at me. I ramble on nonstop about coconut and cookies and cream. In my opinion, the two best Built Bar flavors on the planet. I also, got some coconut brownie chunk bars in again, which is one of their best limited flavors. Might be coming back in soon because Built Bar sends me some bars from time to time in the mail. And when I get them, it's usually a sample of what's to come. So keep an eye out. One of the best flavors ever, coconut brownie chunk, coming back into your mouth soon. And all Built Bars are fantastic as far as the macros for you. They have 17 to 18 grams of protein, just 130 to 180 calories, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. So they're all amazing, tasty, and healthy for you. So if you want to get some Built Bars, go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And today's show is also brought to you by Rock Auto. And what more could be said about Rock Auto? You guys already know the terrible experience of going into a brick and mortar auto parts store. They ask you all those probing questions about your car. You really just need that one part. And of course, that tiny little storefront does not have enough parts for all of the thousands of makes of cars out there, including the various years of all those thousands of makes of cars and everything else. And you have to special order it. They say, oh, well, it'll take a few days, come into our store. And then you go back to the store, you go to pay for it, and the bill is astronomical. By the time you've gone through all that hassle, you feel like you may as well have just gone to the mechanic. That's where rockauto.com comes in. You could save time and money when you use Rock Auto. Why would you want to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? On top of it, Rock Auto is a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could possibly need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. I ordered a gas cap off there one time. It's been my favorite story. And it was cheaper than Amazon, if you can believe that. So they don't just beat those chain auto parts stores, they beat Amazon too. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. If you decide to pick something up, right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, now, instead of talking about Built Bars and Rock Autos, we're going to talk about Mitchell Robinson and how he's built full of rock hard muscle.
Nice.
Hey. Yeah, so like I first off, I'll address the injury thing. Yes, it mostly because of what you said with the snake bitten thing. I still steadfastly believe, I don't think that he is like what I would call injury prone. There just keeps happening these things where he goes down and you're like, damn it. like
It's horrible.
today. Yeah, like today it was Suggs like running in like a I mean, I know Suggs used to play football, but he ran in like a safety trying to get in to the hoop and like just plowed into Mitch and hit him in the knee. And it's just like, first off, why was that not called like as a foul? Because it definitely was. It's just a classic like small guy runs into big guy. Big guy couldn't possibly have been fouled. But that was not anything due to Mitch or his, he didn't just land funny and twist his ankle. Like, I mean, that's the sort of stuff that used to happen to say like Steph Curry early in his career. Like he definitely had like weaker ankles and like he would literally just like step wrong and like, boom, twisted ankle. That's injury prone. What happens to Mitch is like weird freak injuries, like getting his hand broken by going up for a rebound with Julius Randle, like going out to contest a 3-pointer and stepping just like the slightest wrong way on his foot and having it roll a weird way and his foot breaking. And then in this game, according to, I think it was Berman tweeted out what Tibbs said about it, that Tibbs actually said it was his ankle, not his knee, but like in this case, gets his leg run into by Jalen Suggs, then ends up on the floor. I thought they bumped knees. Apparently he twisted his ankle a little bit, but he managed to come back in the game, but it's just like, yeah, it's terrible. I feel so bad for the guy. And it has gotten to the point where, rightly or wrongly, like, even though I don't think that he has a body that is particularly injury prone, in the sense that he's just going to like take a wrong step and break his leg or something. I think that he is just like weirdly snake bitten. And I guess you could sort of justify it by the fact that he's in the middle of everything at all times. He's always in the thick of it, trying to get a big rebound or going up for a lob or whatever. I almost wonder if maybe he's going to, over time, and not that would have helped with the Suggs thing today, but maybe in time adjust his style a little bit and start, despite having all of the crazy athletic gifts that he has, maybe start trying to play a little more ground bound, because it's not like he needs to, on most of his blocks, get mega high in the air, other than the ones where he's like closing out on a 3-pointer or something. He can generally just kind of hop a little bit and be plenty high enough to block the crap out of someone's shot. So I wonder if maybe he'll start taking that approach to his game at some point, just to sort of mitigate these chances for things to happen, like him to step on someone's foot and twist his ankle or something like that. But outside of that, in this game, I loved his effort. I loved how he played. Like 10 points, 4 or 5 shooting, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks. I mean, his hands were so active in this game. I thought that he did a lot during some of the moments where earlier on it seemed like the game was slipping away for the Knicks a little bit. He just kind of came in there and, like, especially right after he got back in after the injury, when he went back to the locker room and then came back out, I thought that he did such a great job of just like cranking the energy up to 11. And he was just like, I'm going to get my hand on every ball that's coming to the inside, whether it's stripping somebody, whether it's going for a block and getting it, no matter what. I mean, 5 stocks in a game, that's a fantastic game for Mitch or for anybody. That's, similar to like what we would talk about when Nerlens would have like his best games last year, except for Mitch also gave you all the rebounding and all the other benefits that he gave, including like just the straight up rim deterrence of making guys just like run away scared from the rim. So I've been loving the open to his season so far. This was, in a bad game, that's the one positive that I feel really good about in this one.
Yeah. And let's get into some of the reasons that I'm really leaning pessimistic on this one. Why it was such a bad game. Julius Randle, again, you just look at the box score and you say 30 points, 16 boards, 4 blocks, 3 assists, 2 steals, and you're like, this dude was amazing. The shooting, obviously, outside the free throws was not good. 8 for 24, Kobe game, 2 for 10 from 3. I just thought he was forcing the issue in so many different ways tonight. Like he literally had 2 different plays. Like one of them resulted in a bucket for the Magic where he just stole rebounds from Mitchell Robinson. I was thinking like, is there bad blood here? Like did Mitch like not like compliment his baby appropriately? Like what's going on? Like that just seemed very very weird. And then he was I don't know. He just like I mean, to your point earlier, it seemed like a classic like bad Randall game in his first year where he just seemed intent on proving I'm the guy, I'm worth this amount of money, and like couldn't just sort of let things come to him. And at points, like look, he's one-on-one with Franz Wagner. He should force the issue a little bit, but it felt like it was that every single play. He did have like one mind-bendingly good layup where he caught it on the I think it was like on the right side of the wing and then went through a double team and had like this nasty hanging like lefty layup that looked kind of Jordan-esque. So he's been showing off a lot of good footwork. He's been getting to the rim a ton this year. I don't really have an issue with like I do have an issue with the shot selection. I guess I don't have an issue with him like trying to get all the way to the rim, but it feels like he's almost trying to prove a point in doing it now versus like being a mid-range assassin as he was a year ago. And then RJ Barrett, this felt like a classic like rookie year, just awful RJ game. 5 for 17 from the field. Did have 5 assists. That's really good. Just 12 points. Went 1 for 7 from 3. The shot just it didn't look quite as smooth as it normally does. I will highlight the 1-3 that he did make. Came on a really interesting play that the Knicks ran early on where RJ screened for Kemba and Kemba came around as if Randle was going to give him a dribble handoff. And then, but he just kept running. And then RJ just pops up, gets the dribble handoff, drains the wing 3. And I started to pinch myself. I was like, who would have thought at any point in RJ Barrett's career that a team would run a play specifically designed to get him a 3-pointer, or at the very least not in his 3rd season. So that was cool to see. But again, just another one of those games for RJ where it felt like things weren't really totally working. And it was pretty noticeable. I mean, I think he was the epitome of that issue for the Knicks. Like, if you're looking for a guy on this team who should be like gets all the way to the rim and jams it, it should be outside of Julius Randle. It should be RJ Barrett. Like that should be like his role. Like he's the young, hyper athletic assassin in this lineup. And too many times he did have the one dunk, but too many times he had to settle for a floater or like a little push shot or mid-range jumper. And it feels like that's again, like throughout RJ's career, him getting all the way to the basket hasn't been an issue, but finishing has. And it feels like there's still some hesitancy there. And we mentioned when we saw him for Team Canada over the summer, the highlights, like there was more variety for him around the rim. I want to start seeing that in these games. And it feels like now that he's back in the NBA, he's just sort of going to his bread and butter. And I want to see a little bit more in terms of diversity and just him getting all the way to the basket.
Yeah, I would love to see that too. I mean, I think that I think this game was just kind of full of guys, like as far as the Knicks were concerned, guys sort of falling into some of their worst tendencies that we saw last year. You know, Randall with the bad shot selection and kind of trying to do too much, you know what I mean, rather than trusting his teammates. And then again, you know, I already noted earlier, like the bad body language and stuff like that. This sort of brings the team down when he's supposed to be like the guy now. You know what I mean? Like he's now, if it was disputed at all last year, he's now the guy on this team for the next like 5 years. Like he's going to be their superstar. And I think he needs to learn to kind of control the morale a little better. And that's something that he'll need to continue to work on as he sort of slots into this like leadership role. But, you know, yeah, RJ too, it sort of just, there was just something uninspired about how he was playing tonight. You know, it was very weird. It was almost like the whole team just kind of came in being like, oh, we smashed these guys on Friday night. So obviously we're going to win this game. But as is always the case, home and homes are always really hard to take the second game because that team that lost is going to come out there immediately and not only have the scouting report on you, the up to the minute scouting report from the last game, but also have a chip on their shoulder and want to beat you. And in the case of the Magic tonight, they definitely had that chip on their shoulder. And you saw it with guys like Cole Anthony, Terrence Ross. Like Terrence Ross even had the funny Twitter interaction where he like told the Magic official account to delete one of their tweets the other day after they were sort of like making fun of themselves and the team a little bit, like after the Knicks beat them so bad. So, yeah. I mean, clearly these guys were not thrilled with how things went on Friday. And the Knicks, I think, just kind of thought, Oh, it's fine. They're, combined yeah, I mean, really, you could look at their combined age and be like, their combined age of 5 people in the starting lineup doesn't even add up to 90, I don't think.
Yeah, that's
So,
not even one Taj Gibson.
yeah, exactly. Like they have approximately one Taj Gibson in their starting lineup
Yeah.
age-wise. Um, so I think that this was just sort of, it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Like it was just a lesson in like the Knicks can't play like their worst selves from last year. And they shouldn't ever. There's no real reason that they should play like their worst selves because clearly they've gotten better. Like we've seen in the preseason in the first couple games of the season, like a lot of these guys added a lot of great skills. Julius was really killing it the first 2 games. And RJ, despite people complaining about limited usage or whatever, was playing pretty well. I mean, he looks like he's definitely added some skills. And, Fournier was slotting in like seamlessly into the offense. And Obi looked like he had added so much. And in this game, much like some of the games last year, I was just kind of like, what is Obi even bringing to the floor at this moment? Like, I just didn't, he missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts. He made 1 shot otherwise, but like 1 of 4 for 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist in 12 minutes. I mean, he was like the spark plug in the previous games to this. And this one, he just like, maybe his energy level waned with the rest of the team, but it just seemed like he wasn't outside of his first bit at the first part of the game, didn't seem like he was sprinting out, going for those those transition like wide receiver catch and slams like he's been going for and stuff like that. His one make was on an alley oop. That just like came back to me. I couldn't place his one make, but it was on an alley oop. And Clyde even made a comment at the time of like, oh, he's hitting at least one of those a game right now. Like that's becoming a regular thing. And it was like, well, that was it. That was the whole night for him. And like Burks too, just it seemed like he was kind of pounding the air out of the ball. And that was just kind of the problem for everybody other than like Derrick Rose in this game, who I thought had a really, really great game. I don't know. It was just tough. I mean, I hope that this just kind of, I think Schwinn put out a tweet of this, Schwinny Poo on Twitter, that was basically like, hopefully this is like a wake up call for the Knicks. Like you can't, there's a limit to how much you can not care against any team in the NBA, even if it's a cellar dweller that's already thinking about where they're going to finish in the lottery at the end of the year. So, and every team will have an axe to grind against you if you kick the crap out of them on their home floor with mostly your fans in the building in Orlando. Of course, they're going to be pissed off and they're going to come at you the next game with more fire than that first one. And that's pretty much it. Like, I actually don't even really know how much more I have to say about this game because they're just like, it's not entertaining to talk about the bad things that the Knicks did last year and whatever that they resurfaced this year. But that was basically what happened.
Yeah, I'll wrap up my end saying a quick shout out to Derrick Rose, 23 points in 29 minutes, 5 for 8 from 3. I think he's now something like 9 for, what is it? Like he started off 2 for 2 and he was 6 for 10. So then he's something like 9 for 17 from 3 on the season, which is just, I mean, I was kind of questioning with Rose. I said like biggest question from going into the season was last year an anomaly in terms of his shooting, in terms of his health, in terms of ability to still have like spring. Like he just looks like the same dude. And like Prez's point, like talk about preseason predictions that Rose might actually be the best point guard in the Knicks roster. So far, it's not close. Like it's clear cut. Rose has been that guy. He's been really good. And I'm curious if that continues throughout the year, if we get the same sort of situation where Kemba is the starter and Rose is coming off the bench. And I think we will. And I think it will just be on the nights that Rose is playing better. He'll be the one who closes games, sort of like tonight. But again, it's a luxury to have that flexibility baked in. I don't know, Alex, any final concluding points on this one?
No, I think that's it. I don't have too much more to say. I'm ready to move on to the next game. National TV on Tuesday. So hopefully they bring their A game for that one. But this has been Locked On Knicks. Thank you all so much for listening, even after such a crappy game. We'll be back, with more shows this week, talking about stuff other than just the games. We're still TBD. We'll find some stuff to talk about tomorrow in your feed, and then we'll have game recaps for both the other games this week, as well as some other great content for you guys. So till next time, though, peace out. Thank you so much for listening. If you watched on YouTube, hope you enjoyed. Hope you've been enjoying the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed yet, we would love if you could, and drop some thumbs up on our videos. And, even if you don't plan on watching it all the time, just that little subscription button only takes a second to hit, and it helps us out a ton. So check out the YouTube if you haven't already. But until next time, this has been Locked On Knicks. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you all soon. Peace out.